march for God, glory, and eternal salvation. But what followed were massacres, betrayals, and battles that shook empires. From blood-soaked Jerusalem to the burning walls of Constantinople, these are the Crusader battles that changed history. But which one turned victory into disaster? Let's find out. The year is 1095. Pope Urban II stands before the crowd at Clermont, calling Christendom to arms. His voice thunders across the square. Deus vult. God wills it. Within months, tens of thousands of knights, footmen, and pilgrims set out for the Holy Land. They marched not only for faith, but for glory, plunder, and the promise of eternal salvation. From the bloodied plains of Anatolia to the high walls of Jerusalem, the Crusaders will clash with the greatest Muslim commanders of the age: Seljuk sultans, Fatimid generals, and the legendary Saladin himself. Some battles will carve new kingdoms into the map of the Middle East. Others will see them lost in fire and ruin. These are the top 10 Crusader battles that changed history. Number 10. Siege of Jerusalem, 1099. First Crusade. 3 years of hardship have brought the Crusaders to the Holy City. They have crossed mountains and deserts, starved in winter camps, and fought in sieges that broke weaker men. Now in the summer of 1099, they stand before Jerusalem's massive walls. Inside, the Fatimid garrison prepares for a fight to the death. The Crusaders, weakened by disease and short of supplies, build massive siege towers and battering rams from the sparse timber of the surrounding hills. Godfrey of Bouillon leads one assault, while Raymond of Toulouse attacks from another side. On July 15th, a siege tower crashes against the northern wall. Archers rain death from above as knights leap across the bridge into the city. The defenders are overwhelmed. The gates are thrown open. What follows is a massacre. The Gesta Francorum records without shame. In the Temple of Solomon, men rode in blood up to their knees in bridle reins. Muslim and Jewish inhabitants are slaughtered, the streets running red. In the chaos, the Crusaders kneel at the Holy Sepulchre, weeping and praying over what they believe is Christ's tomb. The Kingdom of Jerusalem is born, a fragile realm that will stand for less than a century before Saladin's reconquest. But this victory also plants the seeds of future wars. To the Muslim world, the fall of Jerusalem is remembered as a wound carved in fire and blood, fueling generations of resistance. To the Crusaders, it is the ultimate proof of God's will, inspiring new waves of pilgrims and soldiers to cross the seas. The world had changed in those bloody July days. A city holy to three faiths was torn apart, and in its ashes, a kingdom was forged. A kingdom destined to be both a beacon for Christendom and a target for every army of the East. Number 9. Battle of Dorylaeum, 1097. First Crusade. The Crusaders' long column snakes across the dusty plains of Anatolia. The vanguard, led by Bohemond of Taranto, is suddenly enveloped by the thunder of hooves. Kili Arslan, the Seljuk Sultan, has returned with his horse archers, loosing clouds of arrows into the Crusader ranks. The Normans form a tight shield wall, holding back wave after wave of cavalry assaults. Hours pass under the blazing Anatolian sun, men falling to heat, wounds, and exhaustion. The shrill cries of the wounded mix with the hiss of arrows raining from the sky. Dust blinds the eyes and the air itself seems to burn. Then from the distance, salvation appears, a glint of armor shining through the haze. Godfrey of Bouillon and Raymond of Toulouse, leading the main Crusader force, charge into the Seljuk flank with thundering hooves and flashing steel. Caught between two Crusader armies, the Seljuks break. Chronicler Albert of Aachen wrote, "The Turks fled like shadows at the rising of the sun." What seemed certain defeat only hours before becomes a crushing victory. This triumph does more than open the road to Antioch. It cements the Crusaders' reputation. Tales spread across the east and west that these Franks were warriors who would not yield, even when surrounded and outnumbered. Their resilience strikes fear into enemies and rallies wavering allies. But the cost is heavy. The battlefield is littered with the dead, both Turk and Frank, and the survivors know that this is only the beginning. Ahead lies Antioch, famine, betrayal, and trials greater still. Yet at Dorylaeum, one truth is forged in blood and dust. The crusade will not be broken easily. 8. Siege of Antioch, 1097 to 1098, First Crusade. Antioch, a city of towering walls and legendary history, is the key to the road to Jerusalem. The siege begins in October 1097. The Crusaders endure a harsh winter, with food so scarce that some boil leather for sustenance. Desertions thin the ranks, but the city holds. In June 1098, Bohemond secures the betrayal of an Armenian guard, Firuz, who opens a gate in the night. Crusaders flood the streets, overwhelming the defenders. The city is theirs, but their joy is short-lived. Only days later, a massive relief army under Kerboga of Mosul arrives, encircling Antioch. The besiegers have become the besieged. Morale collapses until a supposed miracle occurs. A Provençal priest, Peter Bartholomew, claims to have discovered the Holy Lance, the spear that pierced Christ's side. Emboldened, the Crusaders charge from the gates in a desperate sortie. Against all odds, they rout Kerboga's army. Chronicler Raymond of Aguilers declared, "The Lord fought for us on that day." Antioch becomes a Crusader stronghold for nearly 2 centuries. 7. Battle of Ascalon, 1099, First Crusade. Barely a month after taking Jerusalem, the Crusaders receive word that a massive Fatimid army from Egypt is marching north. If they lose here, their hard-won kingdom will die in its cradle. Godfrey of Bouillon leads around 10,000 Crusaders south toward Ascalon. At dawn on August 12th, they surprise the Egyptian camp. Knights smash into unprepared infantry lines. The Fatimid formations collapse in confusion. Though not a large battle by medieval standards, Ascalon is decisive. The Fatimid threat is turned back, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem survives its infancy. Foucher of Chartres recorded, "The enemy fled before us like sheep before wolves." 6. Battle of Montgisard, 1177. Reign of Baldwin IV, the Leper King. Baldwin IV is only 16, his body racked by disease but his mind sharp and his will unshaken. In November 1177, Saladin invades with perhaps 25,000 men, seeking to crush the Kingdom of Jerusalem in one blow. Baldwin gathers a small force, around 500 knights and 4,000 infantry, and moves swiftly to intercept. Near Montgisard, they catch Saladin's army strung out along the road. The Hospitallers lead a thundering cavalry charge, Baldwin himself riding at the front. Saladin's army, taken by surprise, buckles under the assault. The rout is complete. Saladin barely escapes with his life. Chronicler William of Tyre wrote, "It was as though God himself had fought for us." The victory is a rare and brilliant flash of Crusader triumph in a period of growing Muslim strength. 5. Battle of Arsuf, 1191, Third Crusade. After the long, brutal siege of Acre, Richard the Lionheart marches his army south along the Mediterranean coast. Saladin's forces shadow him, launching constant harassment with swift cavalry raids and arrow storms. The Crusaders march in tight formation, their knights riding on the flanks to shield the infantry. On September 7th, near Arsuf, the tension breaks. The Hospitallers, unable to endure the taunts and missile fire, launch an unauthorized charge. Richard seizes the moment, ordering the entire cavalry to advance. The Crusader line surges forward like a steel tide, smashing into Saladin's left flank. The Muslim army wavers, then collapses under the shock. It is not a decisive strategic victory. Jerusalem remains out of reach, but it restores Crusader morale and secures the coastal road. The chronicler Ambrose wrote, "The Turks fled before Richard as leaves before the wind." 4. Battle of Hattin, 1187, the turning point. The summer sun burns over Galilee. Saladin lures King Guy of Lusignan's army away from water sources, encircling them on the twin hills known as the Horns of Hattin. Trapped, parched, and exhausted, the Crusaders face waves of arrow fire and grass fires set by the enemy. Their formation crumbles. The true cross, carried into battle as a holy relic, is captured. The defeat is catastrophic. Nearly the entire Crusader army is slain or captured, including King Guy. Within months, Saladin takes Jerusalem. Muslim historian Ibn al-Athir recorded, "The Franks suffered a defeat the like of which had never before been seen." Hattin marks the beginning of the end for the first kingdom of Jerusalem. Number 3. Siege of Acre, 1189 to 1191. Third Crusade Acre is the gateway to the Holy Land's coast, and both sides know it. For nearly 2 years, the Crusaders besiege the city, while Saladin's forces try to lift the siege from outside. Conditions are horrific. Rotting corpses foul the air, disease spreads through both camps, and assaults are met with boiling oil and arrow storms from the walls. When Richard the Lionheart and Philip II of France arrive with fresh troops, the Crusader assaults grow relentless. In July 1191, Acre finally falls, but Richard, fearing the return of Saladin's forces, orders the execution of over 2,000 Muslim prisoners, an act that hardens Saladin's resolve and deepens the bitterness of the conflict. The victory gives the Crusaders a critical base, but the road to Jerusalem remains bloody and uncertain. Number 2, Battle of La Fourbe, 1244. Disaster for the Crusader states. The Khwarezmians, fierce Turkic warriors displaced by the Mongols, sweep into the Levant, allied with Egypt. The Crusaders, joined by Syrian Muslim allies, confront them near Gaza. The first day holds promise, with the Crusaders holding firm. But on the second, their Muslim allies flee, leaving the Crusaders surrounded. The slaughter is near total, over 16,000 dead, including the bulk of the military strength of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Matthew Paris would later write, "Never before had so few remained to guard the Holy Sepulchre." La Fourbe leaves the Crusader states crippled and dependent on foreign expeditions for survival. Number 1, Siege of Constantinople, 1204, Fourth Crusade. The Fourth Crusade begins with grand ambitions to strike Egypt, but Venetian politics and debts divert it toward Christian Constantinople. In April 1204, the Crusaders launched their assault on the greatest fortified city in the medieval world. After days of bitter fighting, they breached the Theodosian walls. What follows is a sack unmatched in medieval history: palaces looted, relics stolen, and ancient works of art destroyed. The Latin Empire is proclaimed, but Byzantium is permanently weakened. Chronicler Godfrey of Bouillon, himself a participant, tried to justify it. Never since the creation of the world had so great a treasure been won. To the Greek world, however, it is remembered as a betrayal that deepened the schism between East and West. From the bloodied gates of Jerusalem to the burning streets of Constantinople, the Crusader Wars reshaped 2 continents. They saw moments of heroism and horror, victories won by faith and steel, and defeats that shattered kingdoms. Centuries later, their legacy remains contested, in stone fortresses crumbling under desert suns, in chronicles and sagas, and in the memory of cultures that still recall the clash of cross and crescent. As the old chroniclers might have said, "Here ends the tale of those who rode for God and glory, and found both victory and ruin."
Please